Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. The start of today's video, we're going to be ranking all 96 brawlers in the game right now, from the very worst all the way up to the very best in a tier list for you guys. So I've been playing a ton of ranked, been playing a lot of ladder, and been looking at pro scrims as much as possible to really give you guys the best tier list possible on YouTube. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, because you get no better meta information than here on this channel. So yeah, make sure you're subscribing. So before, well, let's just jump into the F tier straight away. So I will say that there's been a lot of changes in the meta. There's been a lot of balance changes to go through, but there are going to be some balance changes in like a week, kind of roughly, and that'll be the last batch before the World Finals. But there's not going to be too many changes in the meta, apparently, what Adrian said, the guy that does the balance changes. Right, so starting off the F tier with Colt then. So I think Colt probably is the worst brawler inside of the game right now, which a lot of people might think skill issue, but the pros don't use Colt. He's just far too risky to use, and his hypercharge is terrible as well. There's just nothing really that makes me want to use Colt whatsoever right now in the meta. Even Heist is very, very lackluster. So yeah, I just think he sucks right now. Next up in the F tier, we have Jessie. So Jessie did get picked once in LCQ, I believed. But yeah, she's not receiving any buffs. And it's a difficult one for Jessie because she's so good at low trophies. But I think it's quite clear. Her hypercharge sucks. Her base kit is just she's so easy to overwhelm. She's such a terrible brawler. And the last brawler in the F tier, I went with Grom. So again, there's like this very rare niche situation where Grom can be good into multiple snipers and another thrower, but only on a select few maps. And I think Grom's only good against those people that just don't know how to open their eyes and juke his main attack. It's so easy to avoid Grom's main attack. His hypercharge is very lackluster. He's just not good right now. So now I'm going to be moving on to your D tier brawlers. So a lot of these brawlers are in desperate need of a buff. There might be a few instances where you could use them in ranked, for example, but most of the time they're incredibly underwhelming. So the first brawler in the D tier is Chuck. So Chuck, of course, is really good in Heist and absolutely terrible elsewhere. His hypercharge is terrible. He's so easy to predict, really hard to play. I just don't think he's good whatsoever. Next one in the D tier, we have Sprout. So I think Sprout has fallen off a considerable amount in the meta, and it pains for me to say because he's one of my favorite brawlers, but there's just far too many aggressive ideas in the meta. He's not really good in knockout and bounty right now. I don't really see a point in using Sprout, other than the late pick in a few situations in ranked. Fang is next, and it's the same old Fang. He hasn't received any types of buffs, and his hypercharge, if anything, has got worse because of the stat changes. So yeah, Fang's just even worse. Next up, we have Rosa. So Rosa received a slight buff to her healing star power, which actually feels a little bit impactful, but I think mainly the meta around her just doesn't suit her whatsoever. She gets highly outranged, but I do think there's a few use cases for her, but you have to pair it with like a Max or a Jae Young, just because as a standalone brawler, Rosa's so easy to counter. Next up, we have Shelly. So Shelly's just declining once again. It seems to be this period where Shelly gets a big buff and then she just drops down the tiers. Again, I just think there's much better tank counters out there with Shelly that can also get team wipes with their supers from tanks. Shelly can't do that anymore. Next up, we have Jackie. So since the health nerf about 4 months ago, I think Jackie's incredibly hard to make work in this meta, even when there's brawlers like Shade and other brawlers that Jackie can easily counter. She just feels really squishy, and now with all the hypercharge nerfs, she's really lost her power. Bo is next, and he's sliding straight back down to the D tier. So he's received, I think, back-to-back nerfs, or just keeps receiving nerfs to his super, his hypercharge rate, etc., where in pro play he hasn't been used for metas and metas, like probably 4 months plus. But I think the casuals still think that Bo is a good brawler, but trust me, he's really fallen down. I only really think he's useful in hot zone. Outside of that, he's not good. Next up, we have Ems, and nothing is changing about Ems whatsoever. There are some use cases in like gem grab to counter Tara and a few other brawlers, but that's about it. I just think she's just so vulnerable against any type of assassin. It's just so easy to counter and to predict. Next we have BB. So BB, I will say, is a little bit underrated. There are some use cases for her in Hard Rock Mine or to counter certain tanks like Hank, Ash, etc. But since her rework still, I just really think she lacks the range. So she just needs a little bit of love in some department. Maisie is next, and Maisie received a tiny health buff, but that's not really going to push her anywhere close to the meta. If anything, a lot of these aggressive brawlers have been nerfed, so it's making Maisie's viability go down. yeah, I think it's quite clear she needs some type of rework to her kit to make her usable again. Next we have Mr. P, and boy has this nerf pretty much killed Mr. P in pro play, and I don't know about casual play. Mr. P is always OP there, but yeah, Mr. P was like an underrated pick in like bounty and knockout, but they nerfed his supercharge rate again, which I don't really want to complain about too much, but it's quite clear that the numbers were absurdly broken when it comes down to that mid-ladder experience, but again, pros weren't really playing much Mr. P, so it's just going to make him even worse in the pro meta. Next we have Miko. So Miko again is starting to slide down a little bit. So with Miko, it just depends on the user. It's really hard to make Miko work, and I'm finding that as the metas have gone on, people have just realized how to counter him a little bit better. But likes of like RT and Heist, and in I don't know, knockout, you need like the perfect matchup to make Miko work. So he can work, but it's very rare situations. Next one in D tier, I went with Dynamite. So this is the lowest I think I can remember Dynamite being in a very long time. I just think he's so vulnerable to any type of aggro brawler right now. And I think since the hypercharge stat changes, it means his hypercharge super can't one-shot so many different brawlers now. So that's a big indirect nerf to Dynamite and his hypercharge. I just think he's lost his power. When you think of what he could count in the past, I rarely think of going Dynamite into so many brawlers because it's just far too risky. Next up we have Clancy. So funny enough, I do actually enjoy going Clancy in ranks, and especially in like hot zone or to defend in heist. So maybe he could be bumped up one tier, but maybe that's just me being deluded and me just always falling for chat's rage bait in my streams. But honestly, I feel like he's an okay brawler. I was kind of hoping that his hype charge would be something a bit more interesting than what it is, but besides that, I'm liking Clancy as a defensive brawler. Next one in D tier, we have Ziggy. So Ziggy is absolutely terrible right now. This is more so of a prediction once he gets his hypercharge, which will be out in a couple of days when you're watching this. But yeah, I think without the hype charge, he would be F tier, probably one of the worst brawlers in the game. His main attack is just so hard to hit. It reminds me of a Grom, but it's like this fine line in terms of his main attack delay. If they buff it too quickly, like Grom in the past, he's just going to be able to hit every single shot behind a wall. But his super and his hype charge have potential, but only as a late pick in a control game mode, so literally like Grom. Next on the D tier, we have Primo. So I don't think the buff to Primo really did anything. If you missed it, his super charge rate, it needs one less punch to get his super, but then they nerfed his super charge rate from super. So all in all, I don't think that really helps Primo whatsoever. I mean, he can be a bit of a threat in Brawl in some certain maps, but those maps aren't in play in ranked, only in pro play. So yeah, I just don't think there's really much viability with Primo. Next up, we have Surge. So another former like S tier, A tier brawler in the meta, but since that health nerf, it's really made him way too squishy. They buffed his power surge gadget to try and allow him to farm his supers a lot easier, but I'm still finding him just too easy to counter. He just really lacks the health. Next we have Chester. So Chester, if you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, you might argue C tier, but that's maximum with Chester. Ever since they nerfed his hypercharge rate and his hypercharge like super recharge rate, it means he can't cycle his hypercharges the way that he used to, and I'm just finding him a little bit too easy and too predictable to counter in his current meta. I don't think the pros have really used Chester for like 6 months now, so yeah, it's a bad time to be a Chester main. And lastly in the D tier, we have Sam. So it's no longer F tier for me, just because I'm finding the meta to be a little bit better for him. He received a couple of buffs, which I don't think did too much, but it's mainly because of his synergy with Ruffs. A lot of people are playing Ruffs. Ruff's hypercharge feeds the Sam hypercharge, and Sam's hypercharge is broken. So literally because of that synergy, I feel like it's going to up a tier. You've seen him a little bit more in pro play literally because of this. So now we're going to move on to your C tier brawlers. So a lot of these brawlers are just a little bit below average most of the time and can be used in a lot of different situations. And the first brawler is going to be Mortis. So Mortis is only good as the last pick inside of ranked. He's still got a disgusting hypercharge, but there's better assassins out there, and he's a pretty risky pick. Next up, we have Leon. So I feel like Leon's going under the radar a little bit with his buff a couple of updates ago, but most of the time, you don't really think of going to Leon, but it can be underrated in bounty in particular, especially on those open range maps against those snipers. He can be okay. Spike is next, and I'm starting to feel like Spike could slowly be going towards the D tier here easily, because I don't really see many pros pick him at all. You know, there is the odd use case for him inside of like Heist as a defender, or inside of Brawl and a few particular maps like Sneaker Fields, but most of the time he's too squishy, and there's just too many brawlers that receive damage buffs while Spike's starting to fall behind now. Next up, we have Juju. So honestly, Juju is very underwhelming in this meta still, even with all of the nerfs. I think she's only got one map, maybe two, that she's good in pro play, Layer Cake being one of them. I find her hypercharge too hard to charge up because of the fact that depending on the amount of damage that you're dealing with your main attack, it depends how quickly you charge your super and your hypercharge, right? So if you're constantly using the grass attack, the one with the least damage, you're going to be taking forever to charge your hypercharge, and the hypercharge isn't even that good. It gets taken down so quickly, so she's just too easy to counter and too easy to push into. Mandy's next in the C tier, and we could honestly be seeing a bigger drop-off for Mandy, maybe even towards the D tier in the next meta because of the hypercharge stat nerfs. If you guys didn't know, for Mandy's hypercharge, she got like a 20% boost or 25%, I can't remember top of my head. It was still a damage boost, which allowed her to one-shot so many meta brawlers in Knockout and Bounty. Now that's been removed to a 5% damage boost, her hypercharge super is going to get way less value right now. So for that reason, she's going to drop a lot. Lola is next in the C tier and could quite easily be a D tier brawler in the meta right now. You know Lola is bad in the meta when the pros aren't using her, because I think the casual play base just don't really play Lola at all. She's one of the least picked brawlers, but the pros would always pick Lola, especially last year. Well, literally since her release. This is the only year where Lola's not really been used much. Her hypercharge is very lackluster. She just doesn't really do well into many things right now. Colette is next in the C tier, and Colette received a small health buff, which in all honesty is really going to do nothing when you think about it. With Colette, I think the main problem is that she can just get ran all over a little bit too easily. I think in the past you could easily counter any type of aggression with a Colette, but now I think too many brawlers just get still even a 5% shield boost just changes too many interactions for Colette to do well in the meta. Next on the C tier, we have Edgar. So Edgar received 2 buffs to both star powers, and I'm honestly starting to believe that he might be a little bit underrated. I've tried him on my second channel a lot. On my streams, people are forcing me to play Edgar, and in comparison to the previous meta, I'm really liking playing Edgar. Maybe it's because of all of the hypercharge stat nerfs, allowing Edgar to essentially be more tankier. The fisticuffs healing actually feels like it benefited him a lot. I don't know, I feel like he's a tiny bit underrated, but I only want to say it quietly, just because people are always arguing about where Edgar is in the meta. You guys will have to let me know how good you think he is. Next on the C tier, we have Frank. So Frank is slowly just dropping every single update, and he'll probably go back to the F tier if he's not to receive any type of buffs anytime soon, because with Frank, he actually got a big nerf because with the hypercharge stats, it removed the shield boost effectively. And we all know when Frank got his hypercharge super, he was just unkillable because the amount of damage reduction that he received through that shield power-up. So yeah, Frank is just only very usable as a counter pick to maybe a few options to some of the top meta brawlers, but outside of that, it's just not very good. Next on the C tier, we have Pam. So I don't want to jump the gun too quickly with Pam like I have previously. When she received that big damage buff, I think I overrated her quite highly, but I'm starting to see a lot of pros play Pam. In Hot Zone, in Gem Grab, she is that brawler. The hypercharge allows her to be so tanky, and I think thanks to nerf to so many meta brawlers, it's allowed her to be a bit better. So quietly, I think she could be a B tier brawler, but I'm going to say B tier is definitely the maximum you can go with her. Next one in C tier, we have Penny. So we'll say the buff to Penny did make a bit of a difference. I can definitely feel it. I'm starting to play Penny a bit more as a counter pick option instead of like brawlers like Ruffs, for example, or Meeple, or a few other brawlers Penny can be good into, but it's still some glaring, obviously, weaknesses with Penny. You think of a lot of top meta brawlers, you think of like Mina, you think of Cars, you think of all of these tanks. Penny just simply does nowhere near enough damage to keep up with it. So until she receives any type of damage buff, she won't be any really higher than C tier. Next up, we have Poco. So Poco received a couple of buffs in the last update, and to be honest, I've noticed pros play him a little bit more. So I will say probably in the previous meta he was D tier, maybe I was overrating him a bit, but I'm starting to like Poco a lot. He's starting to be a bit more usable in a Hot Zone again, thanks to that health buff, thanks to his healing gadget buff as well. A little bit more healing. He's just starting to become a little bit more of an option. Next one in C tier, we have Nita, and again, every single update that goes by, Nita gets worse and worse and worse. So the pros will always kind of like Nita because she can be a great option, especially some of the meta brawlers like Meeple. Nita can just literally send Meeple back to spawn, so she's still a good like anti-tank option. She's still good when you think of heist, when you're looking for a brawler that can defend well and then go on the offensive with a bear. So there are some use cases for her, but I'm finding most of the time she's just easily outranged, and a lot of times she's just a free kill. Griff is next in the C tier, and I don't really see much point going Griff right now. I think, again, the hypercharge seems good, but most people can escape the hypercharge before you can really ramp up a lot of damage with it. I think Griff's, again, only use case is to break open the map. This has been the case for Griff for literally years now. Literally just to open up the map to synergize either with your team or to counter the opponent's team by breaking open the map. I don't really see any other way of using Griff because it's just too hard to hit shots with. Tick is next in the C tier, and he's gone down from the B tier, mainly because he did receive that damage buff a couple of updates ago, but I'm still finding that there's too many aggressive ideas now, and, you know, you've got to ban the right composite, like the right brawlers to make Tick work, because if there's any type of wall break, you can get overwhelmed. I just think with Tick, he's just got such a slow reload speed that good players just know how to pressure him really easily. 8-bit is next in the C tier, and I'm still not really seeing much 8-bit right now in the meta. I received that damage buff a couple of months ago, but there's not really much point in using him. You would have thought that with a damage buff, maybe he could be a viable option in gem grab, but when you don't see 8-bit in gem grab, you know he's not a good brawler in the meta, and even in heist, he's only like a niche pick, to be honest. So honestly, you could be going down to the D tier. Next up, we have a B. So B, I've just been noticing that hardly anyone has been going B right now, and that begs the question as to whether, like, is she not overrated, but why don't people even talk about B anymore? I just don't really see her, whether it's like in Brawl. Like, you think of a mid in Brawl, right? You think there's like Gus, there's Max now, there's Byron that can just counter B2 easily. Think of gem grab, she's never going to be a good gem grab brawler. I think a hot zone, yeah, it can work, but you need good synergy. And yeah, so like I said, you need good synergy to make B work. You need to open up the map. That's the only way to make it work in this meta. Perla's next in the C tier. So I think Perla has gone from D tier to C tier. This buff feels really nice, but I'm still not noticing her being like an option in knockout and bounty. And that's when Perla's good in a meta. I still think now you can actually use her. Before she was unusable because of that heat ramp up buff that she received. But again, I don't really see her being used by the pros too much. Maybe she's underrated, but I'm just not seeing her used. Next up, we have a Buzz. So Buzz, again, is only really going to be usable as a counter pick option. The reason why he's even viable right now has to be because of his hypercharge. It's still a really good hypercharge that can make some explosive plays. And he's one of the few hypercharges that really didn't like be affected by these hypercharge nerfs. So I think with Buzz, he's, again, only used as the counter pick to maybe counter other tanks with a stun start power. Outside of that, he's too hard to make work. Eve is next in the C tier. So Eve, I do like playing in ranked, but it's only, of course, on the map with a lot of water. And only when Angelo is either just been picked or banned, Eve is the next best option. But she is somewhat underrated because she's a good defensive brawler. And then you can use your hatchlings to pressure other snipers. So you're starting to see a few more snipers appear in the meta again, thanks to all the nerfs to the assassins. So Eve is a good counter pick to snipers, if that makes sense. So you start to see her go up a bit. So next up in the C tier, we have Daryl. And yes, I'm starting to see the fall off of Daryl. I think because he's one of my favorite brawlers, maybe I was a bit biased in the previous meta. He probably was seated in the previous meta as well. Yes, Daryl is a good late pick in knockout still, and a good late pick in heist, but I'm still finding, mainly because of his really lackluster hypercharge, he's just not able to make those plays that he used to when the rework first happened with Daryl. So I think in order for him to be good in the meta again, they need to be reworking his hype charge. Next up in the C tier, we have a Bull. So I feel like I might be being a little bit harsh on Bull, maybe low B tier. But that's probably as high as it really gets with Bull, mainly because he's only a good like counter pick option into some other tanks, maybe like a Hank or an Ollie. You can't really pick Bull for any other reason outside of that. And in heist, he's only good in like base race maps like Hot Potato, Pit Stop, etc. You can't really use Bull elsewhere, so maybe I've underrated him a little bit here, but I think B tier is as high as it can go. Next one is C tier, we have Rico. So Rico's always on the fence of B/C tier in my opinion, because it just depends on the user and depends on the situation. But again, Rico's only really used as like a late pick inside a draft. That's when you know that a brawler has a lot of weaknesses, because if you used to pick Rico early, well, he's super squishy and he's actually not that good at defending himself anymore. So for example, you'd think of a map like Hot Potato, he'd be really good. Well, no, he can just get overwhelmed easily. He's not actually good at defending tanks and assassins anymore. But if you're in the right composition of Bell's Rock or like Pinball Dreams, you can really make Rico work. So he's one of them funny brawlers. And lastly in the C tier, we have Bonnie. So I could even be overrating Bonnie here. I said personally I'd probably run the D tier, but I'm still seeing pros use Bonnie, and I'm still seeing a lot of people in ranked games use Bonnie. Please stop using Bonnie. She's not good anymore. It takes an extra 2 shots to get her super now. It takes 5 hits with the epic gear, I believe, which is just far too much. It makes her such a vulnerable brawler and such an easy brawler to hit. And honestly, Bonnie in the last meta was starting to be a little bit overrated. I remember looking at the pro data, which Symantec showed me, and in terms of use rate, she was like top 10, but in terms of win rate, she had like a 44%, something really low and really alarming, even in the previous meta. So she was being overrated then. She's definitely being overrated now. She's still got a really good hypercharge, which can help her. And because there's maybe like a few meta snipers like Byron, which she can counter, Lumi, etc. Or Lumi's not a sniper, but you know what I mean. She still has like a use case. I still just find her too easy to approach now because this supercharge rate really did hurt her. An extra 2 shots is insane. So now I'm going to be moving on to your B tier brawlers. So a lot of these brawlers are a bit better than average in terms of the meta, and a lot of these can be usable in multiple game modes. So the first one is Kit. So I'm a little bit undecided about Kit because every time I use Kit, I don't think he's anywhere near as good as he used to be because of the hypercharge rate nerf. The supercharge rate nerf as well has impacted a lot of interactions, and yeah, I'm just finding it a lot more difficult to make Kit work, but it's still Kit at the end of the day. The hypercharge itself is still pretty broken, so I imagine Kit's just more of like a late pick option, or it requires a bit more thinking rather than just a brain dead Kit from before. So I think B tier might be fair. The twins are next, and the twins are just like a decent pick in the meta when you think about it. Most of the time they're just good on the maps where you kind of need a thrower. So for example, like triple dribble, you know, you can use the twins on knockout and bounty in last pick scenarios, weirdly enough. But most of the time you use the twins because they're a thrower but can at least defend themselves against aggressive options. They've got a hypercharge which takes forever to get, and it's not actually that great, but I think they were already beaten without the hypercharge anyways. Next up we have Lou. So I was a little bit undecided about Lou because the pros don't really play him too much, but he's still such a fantastic anti-tank option, and especially when you're thinking of like multiple people, multiple like aggressive options in hot zone or Brawl, whatever, you can always rely on a Lou thanks to his hypercharge, which is very, very strong. So I think B is fair. Meg is next up, but Meg is insanely underrated in literally this entire year's meta because the pros will often play Meg when it comes down to hot zone or just when you need that bit of extra survivability. Meg is always there. She was one of the few brawlers where, you know, all of these broken hypercharges, at least Meg was good at surviving against them. It took a long time for them to kill her Meg because of course she pops into her small form. So yeah, I think she's pretty decent. Her hypercharge is really fast charging, which just helps her sustain a lot more. Next up we have Barley. So Barley, again, it's a little bit of a weird one, can only really be played later on in the draft, but there's plenty of good thrower maps in the meta, so that's why Barley's really good, but it's just really hard to kill in the right matchup, and especially because his builds are very flexible as well inside of ranks. His hypercharge can just equal so much control and pressure in hot zone in particular. So he's still decent. Nani is next, and Nani received quite a few buffs in the last set of balance changes. The main one was the main attack damage, but that made Nani charge super one shot quicker, charge hypercharge quicker. Nani's super now deals more damage, and with a lot of aggressive brawlers receiving nerfs, I think Nani is finally a good option again in bounty and knockout. And of course with Nani will always counter the other sharpshooters, so for that reason, definitely back in the meta. Next we have Piper. So Piper's always a funny one in the meta because there are clear weaknesses, but there are a lot of examples where Piper's really good on, but I think she's only really good on super open maps on bounty and knockout right now. And I mean, a few of her counters have been nerfed, but then with the return of Max in the meta, it's a little bit of a weird one for Piper, but she's still good in the right hands. Sandy is next in the B tier. So Sandy is always an underrated pick when it comes down to Gem Grab and Brawl. Sandy will always have those really good matchups into Tara, and funny enough, decent into Assassins, mainly because of the stun gadget, and you can feed super off them pretty easily. So for that reason, Sandy is a solid B tier option. Next one in the B tier, I went with Ali. So I've been saying for the longest time, Ali is super underrated. I was just very unsure why the pros weren't playing him more. Well, actually, there was just far too many broken assassins, like you guys know, like I've told you guys 100 times. But Ali, you know, with all of them being nerfed, she just became better indirectly. She's got a hypercharge, which is okay. It's not anything crazy, but I just think because all of these other brawlers around her got the nerfs, it just made it even a better option. But she's mainly good on Gem Grab and into like roughs and a few brawlers. So it's all about free shots in brawlers with Ali. And because of that, like, she's just insane in Gem Grab. Next up, we have Doug. So Doug's always a funny one, but I think because, again, a lot of brawlers receive nerfs. It's actually made him a bit better, and there's a lot of like more control options in the meta, so that makes Doug better. The reason being is because as a healer, he can out-heal the amount of damage that a lot of brawlers are putting out right now in the meta, but it's mainly in like knockout, bounty, cheesy strategies with Doug's hypercharge. For that reason, he's always a solid like counter pick option. Willow's next in the beta, and since she got that big health buff like 6 months ago, she's been a solid option because she's super hard to kill, and because most of the time she'll always have a super to defend herself. So the biggest downside is that she's not very flexible in terms of her game modes, but in the right map she is just really hard to deal with and just hard to counter. RT is next in the B tier, so RT is a funny one. I don't actually see him as much as I used to in terms of knockout and bounty, but he is good in like situations in heist and hot zone where he's looking to, you know, parallel plays to defend that left lane, in heist to defend against multiple aggro brawlers. So yeah, he's fallen out the bounty knockout meta, but he's better elsewhere now. Next up, we have Janet in the B tier. So funny enough, Janet's actually fallen down a little bit in this meta, mainly because she was one of the few mid brawlers in Gem Grab which could actually defend herself, funny enough, against assassins and aggro brawlers, because she had the jump gadget, she had a super to get away, and that was the only way you could really survive against these broken brawlers. So now the meta shifted a little bit. She's getting a little bit less of an option, but she's still one of the best mids in Gem Grab, and outside of that, I don't really see it being played, but yeah, she's a great option in Gem Grab. Stu is next, and he received a hypercharge rate buff in the last update, and it definitely helped him out. I'm not really seeing him like as good as he used to be back in the day, where you could just pick him into everything, but he is starting to improve a lot, so do watch Stu. Next up, we have Brock. So I really like Brock in draft, mainly because he's such a good sniper in the sense of you can open up walls really easily with his rocket fuel gadget, which is going to allow him to counter so many different brawlers. He's also a tough brawler to push into just because of the way that his main attack works. So if you play really disciplined Brock, he's such a solid option in knockout and bounty. Next up, we have Berry. So Berry's always a good in a good spot in the meta, mainly because in heist he's a fantastic brawler because one gadget will equal 20% damage to the safe, but he's also good in synergy with quite a few brawlers in hot zone, but he's nowhere near the power that he used to be, like this time last year when Humble was dominating a lot with Barry in a hot zone, but he's still like a good counter pick option. I think because of Crow and a few other brawlers, he just struggles to get as much value as he used to be. Next up in the B tier, we have Gray. So Gray is still a pretty good brawler in the meta right now, but he's nowhere near as good as he used to be. Like, he used to be in a spot where he was always like the first pick option in knockout and bounty, and the pros don't really draft him nowhere near as much as before. So I'm thinking mainly because there's probably just better snipers in the position right now. You think of like Byron coming to the meta, you think of like Gus as well. They're just able to outrange Gus a little bit, Gray a little bit easier, but yeah, he's still a good option. Still some cheesy strategies to be had with him in hot zone and gem grab, but you don't really see them too often anymore. Mo is next in the B tier, and again, thanks to a lot of these aggressive brawlers being nerfed, it's actually helped out Mo, because the biggest weakness to Mo was these aggro brawlers, because it takes Mo a little while to get his super to defend himself, but now I think he's a fantastic option in terms of just going Mo, and he's good into everything. Like, once you get your super, you can just get so many kills in so many different matchups. He's got a really good hyper charge as well. So yeah, I'm happy that the pros are finally starting to realize the potential of Mo. Next one to beat it, we have Trunk. So I really like Trunk, guys. I know, and I'm one of the biggest Trunk mains out there, but I think Trunk's only good on select maps and as a late pick. So it's hard for me to put him in the A tier if he's only really good later on in the draft, if that makes sense. So he's a good counter pick option, and I will say there are some pop-off moments. So if you're gonna say I'm wrong, I mean, low A tier is also fine with Trunk, but he's not anything above that. His hyper charge is really good as well. I think the best thing about him is just being able to dash as a tank, but it's his gadget. His gadget just enables him to heal so much. His recent damage buff as well is pretty good. I like him, but it's hard to see him be like a true top meta brawler. Buster is next in the B tier, and I think again he could easily be A tier as well, but Buster was impacted a little bit with the hypercharge changes, because the amount of damage that he deals now is a little bit less, and of course that just, with Buster you could always cycle through a lot of hypercharges, but I still like Buster literally because you can farm hypercharge for free. He's still going to get a lot of value, and he's still always like a solid counter pick option into a lot of different brawlers like Carl, Tara, Lily, a few other options like that. So for that reason, I think easily like low A tier, high B tier. Amber is next in the B tier, and I really like Amber. She's a solid option in a lot of different situations. I have seen Amber's use rate go down in the previous few metas. I think the main reason being probably because there's like a lot of Lily right now. There's also just other control brawlers that are a bit better, you know, like Ruffs, Otis, etc. But Amber's still pretty good. You know, hypercharge can get a lot of value. It takes a long time to get up, And if you're ever unsure what to go on like a hot zone map or heist, then Amber can always be that brawler. And finally, the B tier, I went with a Gale. So this might be finally the meta where Gale is balanced or even a little bit on the stronger side. Because with Gale, he received a buff to his super charge rate through main projectiles. So it takes 3 less main projectiles to charge it. That means he has a super more readily available. And whenever Supercell like tinkers with these type of supercharge rate buffs, it just makes Gale such a viable option. This also means his hypercharge is charged a lot quicker. It's just making him more viable. I think with Gale in the pro meta, he probably is A tier because the map pool really favors him. In ranked, it doesn't actually favor him that well because there's maps in the competitive map pool like pinhole punt, just where the map's a little bit open, where Gale can actually dictate the map a lot easier. Hot zone maps, he's also pretty solid as well. So yeah, I think try out Gale. He's actually pretty good now. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to your A tier brawlers. So these are pretty much the best of the best. I'm going to be solid options across the board. I'm going to be starting off with Belle. So Belle is a solid option. You can never really go wrong with a Belle, whether it be heist, whether it be a long range map. I mean, you could argue that she's might be going down a little bit, but even in the previous meta when there was so many broken assassins, Belle was one of the most picked brawlers into like top 15. So just going to show she's always a solid option. Lumi is next in the A tier, and funny enough, I could definitely feel the nerf to her main projectile speed, but I still think she's a solid, like really good. She's so good in hot zone, so good in Brawl. She's pretty versatile. I mean, she's no longer like a must insta first pick brawler, but she's still going to be able to counter those like tanks, for example. She's still got a really good super, really broken gadget. So I'm liking Lumi. I'm noticing the pros are still going Lumi a little bit, but maybe these nerfs might catch up to her. We'll have to wait and see, but I still think she's solid A tier. Next one in the A tier, I went with Melody. So even though she received a 200 health buff, that should be doing nothing. I just think, again, all of these hypercharges getting damage nerfs makes Melody a better option. And the pros are starting to play a lot of Melody now, whether it be, funny enough, a mid-in gem grab to counter Max, which is just crazy to even think of, but that's a great counter to Max. You're seeing Melody, again, very usable in heist. You're just seeing her in a lot of different places where you literally wouldn't have in previous metas because other brawlers would just destroy her way too quickly. So yeah, I believe Melody is definitely back in the meta. Next one in A tier, went with Draco. So funny enough, I really feel the nerfs with Draco personally. So I would probably put Draco in the B tier. But you can't deny that his hype charge is still broken. So for that reason, and he's still like the best brawler in hot zone, hands down, you could have placed him low A tier. So yeah, Draco received a couple of nerfs with his speed in his super and the amount of damage he deals. So again, you can definitely feel it, but I think still there's so many toxic combinations of Draco. His gadget, his heal star power, these combos just make him such a hard kill still. So he's still really hard to kill. Next one here tier, we have Carl. So Carl, again, is one of these brawlers which I think is overplayed a lot by my randoms. But in pro play, there are some good use cases for him. Like, he's a solid option. Multiple heist maps, like Safe Zone. He's good in Bounty to collect the blue stars, so you get a good lead. And there's a few other use cases for him. He's like this solid option. I mean, he's not anything crazy, but the right call and the right matchup can really pop off. Next up in the A tier, I went with Kenji. So again, another one where his hype charge was heavily nerfed, but I still think it's a little bit better than people are making out. So let's see if this hype charge nerf does in fact make a big impact on Kenji. I just still think Kenji's such a strong brawler fundamentally. He's got a good star power that can block a lot of damage. He's got a good gadget that can heal a lot. His life steal. I think a good Kenji is still making a big impact on this meta. Again, I'm watching the pro scrims and people are going Kenji a lot in gem grab, hot zone, etc. Still think he's a great brawler. Charlie is next, and I'm starting to see Charlie drop down a little bit again as other brawlers are receiving these buffs and whatever else, but I still think Charlie is like the go-to brawler in a lot of situations. She can be a great gem carrier, she can be a great defender in heist, she can be good to counter snipers with the spiders gadget. I think there's a lot to like about Charlie since the range buff that she received not too long ago. She's still solid. Next up, we have Squeak. So Squeak is finding his feet even more in the meta now, thanks to the fact that he can counter roughs a little bit better. And because of the meta around him, it's a little bit slower than in the previous meta. He's just being more of a threat, more of an impact. And especially there's quite a few maps in the game where I think Squeak is just so toxic. Think of a few bounty maps. You think of just, again, being able to counter those control compositions. So I think Squeak has got better thanks to the meta around him. So we have Tara. So I'm yet to come to a solid conclusion on where she really lies in this meta. Again, the next week will be a good indication, but I still think Tara is a good option. She's still one of the best gem grab brawlers in my opinion. but then again, she's a lot easier to push into because it takes 2 extra cards to get that first super now. So yeah, a lot less punishing. It means all of these aggro brawlers will be able to push into her and keep lane a lot more consistently. So do bear that in mind. She might be dropping in the next tier list. Jean is next in the A tier. Jean is always one of the most played brawlers in pro play. It's impossible not to put him in the A tier, guys, because he's always a first pick in knockout and bounty. The reason why he's so good is because you got the healing star power. His pull is always a threat. His just tickle damage just is really good for control. There's just so much to like about Jean. It's impossible not to put him in the A tier. So in the A tier, I went with Shade. So again, this is more so on what I've been watching in terms of pro scrims. That Shade is still a really good option in the meta, but I personally would actually see him more as a B tier option because of the damage changes with hypercharges. It means he can't just go around and free tap so many different brawlers. So yeah, I do foresee Shade getting worse, but there's just so many good maps for him. It makes it hard not to play him. Angelo's next in the A tier, and Angelo's always in and around the A, S, B. He's not been any lower than that ever since Angelo's released. So with Angelo, it's always just down to the map pool. As long as there's a map with water on, Angelo's going to be one of the best brawlers, whether it be Heist, whether it be Knockout, whether it be a few other instances as well. It's so hard to counter as well, and with all of these changes in the meta, it's made Angelo better. Gus is next in the A tier, and Gus again did benefit from all of these meta changes because with Gus, sometimes he would be overwhelmed by a lot of these aggressive brawlers. I will say there's now, like, Ashe is more prevalent. It's actually making Gus a little bit weaker in gem grab in particular, but Gus is just still the go-to brawler thanks to his easy to hit attack, his kooky pop-up. You know, he's a solid option. Baron is next in the A tier, and Baron is still meta, guys. Even with the hypercharge rate nerf, he's still just, it's so quick to charge up his hypercharge because his main attack projectile is so easy to hit. He's also got booster shots. But yeah, Baron is insane. His synergy as well with so many different brawlers just makes him such a flexible option, and he's still seeing the pros pick Baron pretty much everywhere. Lily is next in the A tier, and boy, is Lily is just still so obnoxious to face off against. You could say that Lily's hype charge is a little bit worse because of the stat changes, meaning she can't just shred for everything instantly, but hype charge is still good. The projectile speed is still really easy to hit a hyper charge super with, and you've got one of the most broken gadgets inside of the game, so I see Lily is still one of the best brawlers easily. Next up, we have Ashe. So Ashe received a small health buff, but this has made Ashe such more of a threat in gem grab and Brawl. I can't put Ashe in like my top 5 mainly because he's not that great elsewhere, but Ashe is definitely back in the meta, and you can definitely feel him being more frustrating to face off against. That extra health is very annoying. So yeah, definitely back in the meta. Finks is next in the A tier, and Finks received a small few nerfs in the last set, balance changes, but I don't think it's really impacted him too much. Finks is still the go-to brawler in Hot Zone, one of the best there. And you still use Finks. I've seen him using like Kaboom Canyon in pro play. I've seen him using like Undermine. He can be a good mid as well. He's one of the best lanes on those bushy maps because he can scout easily. Finks is still insane. Next one in the A tier, I went with Ruffs, and Ruffs has just broken the meta recently in pro play. In the previous one, he was definitely an S tier brawler, one of the best easily. But now, because the hype charges have been nerfed, his hype charge super gets a little bit less value because they're not as broken as before, but it's still Ruffs. The reason why he's so good is because of that projectile speed buff. Allowed him to hit more shots, allows him to build up more supers, more hypercharges, allows him to break open the map a lot more consistently. But of course, a faster projectile speed also just means pure outright damage. He's just able to make more of an impact on the game. Yeah, he's really hard to deal with because a lot of his counters aren't really meta right now because it's not really a control meta, so it allows Ruffs to thrive even more. And even if you pick aggro brawlers into Ruffs, well, that's just going to feed him supers and feed him hypercharges. So it's pretty hard to find like absolute counters for him in this particular meta outside of squeak and throwers. Next up in the A tier, I went with Jae Young. So I feel like he probably said he's an S tier brawler right now, but I think high A tier is fair. So he received a couple of nerfs with his damage gadget and with his unload speed, so you can definitely feel it a little bit, but I still think Jae Young's just super versatile and really hard to take down. And with his slow gadget getting buffed, I am seeing some pros use the slow gadget on those control game modes as well. So Jae Young is still easily top 10 brawler. Next up in the A tier, I went with Crow. So Crow's one of the few brawlers that didn't receive a nerf in terms of like top 15 from the previous meta, and Crow is still really good in this meta. So he's good at countering a lot of the meta options like Otis, like, well, doesn't really counter Otis too well, but he can be annoying to Otis. But Max, for example, a great counter to Kaze. One of the few counters to Kaze, Max in particular. Crow's just really annoying for that reason. He's got a lot of health and just annoying kill. And he's super versatile. You can play him as a mid and gem grab, as a lane if you want to. In Heist with his hyper charge, can deal a lot of damage. There's just so much to like about Crow. Also counters Jae Young as well. So yeah, he counters a lot of his top meta. Byron as well. He's very good. So in the 80, I went with Ollie. So this might be a little bit surprising to you guys, but I wasn't surprised with the nerfs. So the nerfs looked harsh, but I just knew for a fact, I was saying this out loud a lot, that Ollie would still be good because of the all eyes on me gadget, guys. It is such a good gadget because after this 15-second cooldown, it means assassins and tanks just can't really push into an Ollie. It's such a broken gadget. How has it not been nerfed? Anyways, the hypercharge got nerfed and it needs 4 supers to charge up now, and you no longer jump, but it's still, the radius is still insane. I think Ollie is such a strong brawler still. You guys have got to try him. I think people would be quick to just presume he's just dead in the meta because of his nerfs. He's not. He's still easily a top 10 brawler. And finally, rounding off the 8 tier, we're going to be going to our Milky Boy Hank. I think Hank is such a good option in his meta right now. So underrated, and he did receive no nerfs, even though he was one of the most played brawlers in LCQ. He was up there for sure. But Hank, yeah, you just need a toxic map, and you know you're going to make him work. And he's actually got a few good synergies as well in the meta with Max, with Meeple as well, because if you box people in, Hank can destroy them. So if anything, his synergies allowing him to be that much better in his meta. So now we're going to be moving on to the S tier brawlers in the meta. You'll be glad to hear there's not too many broken brawlers in this particular meta, but it's definitely some that still need a bit of a nerf to turn them down. So the first one is Otis. So yeah, Otis sounds crazy, right? Because he's just one of the least played brawlers in the meta. But that damage buff was insane a couple of months ago. 1,000 damage per shot is absolutely crazy. It makes it near enough impossible to push into an Otis. Trust me, he just deals so much damage. And Otis has such an underrated range to him. He can outrange, like, I think Amber and a few other brawlers. He's got a really annoying gadget. Any bushy map, he's going to get ultimate control. His super allows him to counter some assassins. Yeah, he really is the go-to brawler. Pros are loving Otis right now. They're banning him a lot in multiple game modes like Brawl Ball Gem Grab because, again, it's just impossible to push into him right now. So now moving on to your top 5 brawlers in the meta. At number 5, I went with Max. So Max is fully back in this meta. When it's a more balanced meta, there's no, like, big outliers. Well, like the previous meta, there's about 20 broken brawlers. This allows Max to just get better indirectly, but Max received a big buff with a hypercharge rate. 2.2 supers to get a hypercharge is insanity. I don't know why they buffed this. I just can't believe it. It's just unlimited supers, unlimited synergy with so many meta brawlers. Max is such a flexible brawler, and the pros are just abusing her. Like, I knew straight away the pros would like this, but maybe not top 5 worthy. Yeah, she's just played everywhere. There's hardly any true counters to Max in this particular meta. I'm just blown away just by how many hypercharges she can put out in a game. Next up is the 4th best brawler in the meta. I went with Kaze. So Kaze received a nerf to the hypercharge rate, but they didn't fix the fundamentally broken thing with the invisibility. You can just spam invisibilities. The way you play Kaze, you just be really unpredictable with invisibilities, and then just try and chain your super as much as possible. Just constantly go aggro time and time again. Nobody can counter it. The dash is so fast, it's just... there's no true way to really shut down a Kaze. There's only a handful of counters out there for Kaze, in my opinion, like Crow, Tara, and even these brawlers don't fully shut down a good Kaze. There's just unlimited pressure. The really quick reload speed and unload speed in her fan form allows her just to get unlimited pressure on the map. She's so versatile. And it's impossible, even with like correct teamwork coordination, and even if you're in voice chat calling out if she's gone invisible, etc., it's still really hard to deal with a Kaze. So for that reason, she's still top 5 easily. So it's the 3rd best brawler in the game right now. I went with Cordelius. So this is another easy one because with Cordelius, they really under-nerfed him in the last balance changes. They nerfed his combo shroom star power from 30% to 20%, which is just pathetic when you think about it, because the damage that he deals is just absolutely bonkers. It's insanity. It's actually insanity. So many instances where he just supers you and you're just dead. It doesn't matter what brawler you are. He will just destroy you in 3 pieces of ammo. So what they need to do is just nerf his damage, plain and simple. He shouldn't be able to rip through every single brawler he sees. So for that reason, he's one of the best brawlers inside of the game. He's one of the best counters to tanks and assassins. And he's just outright one of the best brawlers in damage right now. So he can do everything thanks to the jump gadget, mute gadget. So much flexibility with his build. Easily a top 3 brawler. Now jumping into the 2nd best brawler in the game right now, I have gone with Meeple. So I told you guys when the balances dropped that Meeple would be a top 5 brawler in the game. And boy, was I absolutely right. I mean, you could kind of see it even before the balance changes. Meeple's hypercharge was very good, but just purely for the fact there was another like 10, 15 broken hypercharges in the game, it was hard to really play Meeple. But yeah, Meeple's insane. So I will say, with Meeple, I do like Meeple metas in a way because Meeple is a very easy brawler to counter somewhat, because you can just go with a lot of HP or you can just spam a lot of stuff. But at the same time, if you don't have direct Meeple counters, Meeple is just insane. So the reason why Meeple is so good is because of the hypercharge. The hypercharge is a lot stronger than people are letting off. You literally can't touch a Meeple when Meeple hypercharges. Ultimate map control, and the only way you can escape it is by running away. That's the only way. Two really good gadgets with Meeple, and if you use a damage star power as well, it takes 4 shots to recharge that super. I just think it's impossible to push into a Meeple right now in this meta. It really is. Yeah, I'm just blown away just how strong Meeple is again. Like, it might seem just completely out of nowhere to you guys, but trust me, the pros are playing Meeple and banning Meeple everywhere. I'm having an absolute headache trying to counter Meeple in my ranked games. So frustrating. Yeah, Meeple's fully back. I think for me, without a doubt, a top 3 brawler. Maybe even the best brawler in the game, to be honest. So now moving on to the best brawler in the game. So it's pretty hard to dethrone Mina, in my opinion, because the nerfs just weren't meaningful enough. You just can't counter Mina. We've seen in LCQ, the recent esports tournament, Mina was let through once and it just won so easily. So the pros thought they could some ways like counter her, but I just don't think there's any true counters to Mina really. And even though Mina receives a couple of nerfs, which you might think might do something, it doesn't, because Mina then got a really broken hypercharge on top of that. She's also got 2 busted gadgets. Like, people don't talk enough about how busted her gadgets are. One of them gives you another 3 supers, so that means assassins and tanks just can't deal with Mina, because 2 supers flying in the air, you're dead. And then the other gadget is so broken on knockout, or just, if you think about it, say if you're facing off against any sort of tank counter, you can push up with Mina, you can just put this bubble down, you can also attack through it, but it just gives you so much survivability and so much pressure on the map. You can't deal with Mina. You guys should know, she's completely broken still. So yeah, that's going to be it. Here's a tier list on your screen right here. So I will say that this meta is actually really nice, and I think for the first time this year, maybe I feel like I'm not completely frustrated when I'm playing the game. So yeah, I'm noticing a big uplift with Brawl Stars right now. It feels a lot more fun to play because they're not these stupidly broken hypercharges ruining my experience. And even when there are strong hypercharges, it doesn't feel as powerful because of the supercharge, well, not supercharge, right? The hypercharge boosts, the stat boosts, they've been nerfed. So yeah, sorry, I've spoke so much in this tier list. I need a break. So let me know whether I got anything wrong with this tier list in the comment section below. But I think this is pretty accurate. There might be a few, like, but I don't think anything's like majorly wrong with it, especially considering all the data that I've been putting into it. So that's going to be it, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.